Hi, family. Welcome back to another chat. Now, today I am so excited to share this chat with you. What the Holy Spirit has been sharing with me about what we are about to experience. So, before I start this chat, though, let me first apologize if you hear any noise in the background. They are outside taking care of the lawn, and there is a lot of noise. I was trying to wait for them to finish, but it would happen when I'm about to share this video. But I'm not letting that stop me sharing what the Holy Spirit wants you to know, because this is an exciting word. So let me share this with you. This is the season, not the last video, but the one before I shared about the season, the year that we're entering to in 5785. We'll be entering our new year, the Hebraic New Year, on October 2nd. And that starts the year 5785. And what I explained in that video was that the word 5785 is Hey, H-E-Y. And in Hebrew, Hey stands for look and behold. So if you haven't listened to that video, please go back and listen to that to give you a better understanding of what I'm about to share with you. But you will also have an understanding of what I'm sharing as well in this video. But be sure, go back so you can get the full understanding of where we are, what season. It's important to understand what seasons we are in when it comes to our journey, our walk with Christ, and understanding what God is doing in a season. And in this season, again, we're entering the look and behold, 5785. And this whole week, actually starting a little last week, every morning I woke up, I would hear, "You're about to be in awe." Every single morning, you're about to be in awe. So every morning I'm like, okay, God, I know you're doing something. I know what season we're entering in. And just being in expectation from hearing the Holy Spirit say, you are about to be in awe. So with that being said, I knew just over the days, I kept hearing it, and I'm like, Holy Spirit, thank you. And, I'm praising, I'm worshiping God and just thanking him for what he's doing in this season. But I also knew that it wasn't just for me. It was also for all of us who are in that season, who we've endured, like the Israelites. They were in the wilderness. They crossed over the promised land, and it came to a point where they actually saw the promises of God. And it took them 40 years, but they finally got there. So if you've been in that season and now you crossed over, you went through the open door, and the analogy that I've been using is that once you cross through the threshold, you're standing in the foyer. You haven't been invited to see everything in the house yet, but you're in the house. And that's the stage where we are now. We stepped over the open door, over the threshold. Now we're standing in the promise. And now, suddenly, in a moment, very soon, you're about to be amazed. You're about to be amazed with seeing the physical manifestation of God's promises. Whatever he's promised you, you're about to experience it. And what he shared with me is that as you experience it, I want you to understand this. It may not look like what you think it should look like. And I will just share this with you. I'm not going to go into detail, but this week, and this is why I knew I had to share it. It's not just for me, but it's for all of you as well. This week, now I told you last week, like the end of last week, that's when the Holy Spirit, every day I heard, you're about to be in awe. You're about to be in awe. Well, this week, I have seen twice physical manifestations of God, promises that he's given me that finally came into reality this week. And when I tell you, one of them, when we talk about it may not come the way you expect, one of them came in a way that I could not have ever imagined, dreamed, thought of, planned out. It was so far off of my radar that I wouldn't have known unless I was in tune with the Holy Spirit. And this is what the Holy Spirit wants you to know. So get excited because you are about to be in awe. But in addition to it, be open. Keep an open mind about how these promises are going to show up. Remember, God's thoughts are not our thoughts. And even though, we may try to change, we have an idea of how we think something could happen, or not saying that we're like, oh yeah, it's going to happen like this, but we may have an idea of how it could happen. Erase that from your mind. Erase it. Because, and I will share with my experience, like I said, the way it came was so far-fetched. I never would have thought that it would have came that way. It was just so out of the box. But as you're entering into seeing the physical manifestations, all the promises that God has given you, keep an open mind. Don't get so tunnel vision on the way you think something is going to happen to the point where you miss out on what God is promising you, because in your mind, you think it's going to look a certain way. You think it's going to come in a certain package. It doesn't always happen that way. So it's important in this time, just use discernment and just go with the flow. You will know when it's from God. And I'll tell you that. I know sometimes you're like, well, how am I going to know? If it's so far-fetched, how am I going to know? You will know. You will know. When the promise showed up to me this week, one of those promises, the one that was just so out there, as I was in it, I'm not going to say I couldn't see it, but it was kind of like I was so shocked that it came to me in the way it did. And another thing, when it comes, it's going to be so effortless. You're not going to have to put in a lot of work. It's like it's just going to come right at you. It's just going to be attracted, drawn to you. That's one indication. I'll tell you, that's one indication you will know that that's God. That's the promise. That's the manifestation of his promise. Because when it comes to you, it's going to be something that it's like, oh my gosh, this is so good to be true. Is this real? In awe. You're going to be in awe as it's going on, and your wheels are going to be turning in your mind, and you're going to be like, okay, is this real? This doesn't make sense. Now, I know people are out here scamming and doing stuff. Is it real? You will know, because you won't have to do a thing. It's like it's going to chase you. It's going to run you down. And through the whole process of it, it's going to be so seamless that it will seem unreal. But that's why I see now, as I'm speaking, when he shared with me, you're about to be in awe. I was in awe. You're about to be in awe. You may have already started experiencing things and you're like, God, I can't believe this happened. This is so off of the radar. I never would have expected it to happen like this. You may have seen it and it's like all you can do is just stand there because you're so amazed. It's like your brain may still be processing what happened. This is what we're walking into. And the Holy Spirit wants us to be open to what he's doing, not trying to have a set mindset about how it should happen or how we dream that it should happen or us putting the pieces together and saying, okay, well, this is going to happen. This has happened. So this is how it should happen. Just stop at this point. Let God do what he's going to do, because you won't be disappointed. And I wanted to share this with you too. When we talk about keeping an open mind and understanding that things may not happen the way you think they're going to happen. So if you remember with the Israelites, when they entered the promised land, everything wasn't smooth. They had to end up going to war when they entered the promised land. So they're standing in the promise, but they hadn't seen the full manifestation yet. They're standing in the promise. And what the Holy Spirit shared with me is he compared it to what a lot of us have been through, where we've been in the promise, but we haven't seen that physical manifestation. And with the Israelites, what happened was when they entered the promised land, they went to war. But you think about it, when they entered, before they entered the promised land, or even being in the promised land, do you think they thought that once they entered the promise, they knew, okay, God, you promised us this. You promised to bless us. You promised to have, for us to have plenty, to be abundant. When they entered, do you think they expected to go to war? No. They probably expected to enter the promised land and be just relaxed, just enjoying everything that God said would be theirs. But it didn't go that way. And in that, I want to read Joshua 24, verse 11 through 13, verses 11 through 13. I'm reading from the New International Version, NIV version. It says, then you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. So they crossed over Jordan and then they arrived in Jericho, in their promised land. That's where Canaan is. So they were in the promised land. They crossed the Jordan. And it says, the citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. But I gave them into your hands. So when they were in the promised land, things didn't happen the way they thought it was. Things weren't chill. They weren't relaxed. They weren't at a place of just, oh, we're enjoying the promises. We're just living our best life. That's not what they experienced. They had to go to war with all of these different tribes. And God says, but I gave them into your hands, which means he's like, okay, yeah, you had to go to war, but you didn't have to do a whole lot. I surrendered them to you. It says, I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. Also, the two Amorite kings. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. So once they entered into the promised land, God was fighting for them. God was arranging things. God was doing what they had to do. Yes, they had to experience the war, but God was fighting it for them. So I gave you a land on which you did not toil, and cities you did not build. And you live in them and eat from vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Get that. So they entered into the promised land. Things didn't look like what they thought they would look like. But God fought for them. And it came to a point in verse 13 where all of those who were opposing them, the enemies, the Jebusites, Perizzites, Canaanites, all of those were driven out and the land became theirs. So that was when they actually saw the physical manifestation. This is our promised land. They were already there, but it wasn't until God drove out everything else that did not belong that it belonged to them. They physically saw the manifestation, the promises that God said would be theirs. And I'm gonna read this again. So I gave you a land on which you did not toil and cities you did not build. That's another thing. Along with these promises, you're going to get, some of these promises are going to come with things that when I say all you have to do is walk into and it's just going to succeed. All you have to do is say yes and it's just going to flourish. All you're going to have to do is enter a room and things, you will be that person entering the room and everything is just going to prosper. That's how simple it is. All of the toiling, everything else that needed to be done to get to this point has already been done. You're not going to have to come in and do the hard labor. You did that when you were in the wilderness. You toiled when you were in the wilderness. You suffered. You experienced challenges when you were in the wilderness. But now is your time to be in awe. So that when you walk and you step into those promises, when you experience the physical manifestation of those promises, you won't have to do a thing. Everything will be set up. The table will be set. So keep an open mind so that you don't miss what God is doing. Make sure you keep an open mind and use discernment. But again, you will know in the moment when you experience it, it may seem like it's too good to be true. But just like with the Israelites, when they got there, once God drove out all of the opposing, all of the enemies, they arrived in a land that was already established. They didn't have to do anything. It was already prepared for them. So understand that you are about to be in awe. I'm not just saying this to get you hype. I'm not just saying this to inspire you. I'm not just saying that to stroke itching ears. I'm telling you what the Holy Spirit shared with me and what I experienced personally this week. So prepare your mind. You're about to be in awe. So keep an open mind to whatever God does. It may not look like what you think it's going to look like. It may not come in the package you think it's going to look like. The timing may not be, you may think something else is going to happen, but God will change. He will change the whole schedule of things. So just be open and prepare yourself to be awed by God. Revive fam, I love you all, and I'm so excited about where we are. Y'all, we made it. We made it. We went through some trials. We went through some challenges, seasons, years, but we made it. God gave us the strength to continue, even though there were times maybe where we didn't listen, we didn't obey, but God's grace was still there. He loved us so much, and he wanted to see us aligned to the plan he has for our lives, and he wants us to be happy. So he allowed us to get to this point. So celebrate. I'm so happy for you. I love you all. And until next chat. Oh, and if you experience your moment of awe, go ahead and share it with the rest of the family so we can all celebrate, because this is a time that it is time for celebration, because a lot of us you went through so much, and this is now your time of relief. So celebrate, because you're about to be awed. I love you all, family.